coming from Myanmar, and it states that the Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing will attend this week's business summit in Bangkok. The summit is scheduled from April the 2nd to April the 4th and brings together nations from the Bay of Bengal region, including Thailand, Myanmar, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Bhutan. Thailand's foreign ministry confirmed his attendance, though it's unclear whether he will participate in person or remotely. Moving on, and China's military exercises around Taiwan continue to escalate, with Beijing's forces conducting live fire drills in the East China Sea, targeting key ports and energy facilities. On Wednesday, Taiwan's defense ministry reported the presence of 27 Chinese aircraft, 21 warships and 10 Coast Guard vessels encircling the island. Both the US and Taiwan reacted to the drills. Here are those responses.
In fact, the National Security Council briefed me on this morning, and they said that the president is emphasizing the importance of maintaining peace in the Taiwan Strait, encouraging the peaceful resolution of these cross-strait issues, reiterating our opposition to any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or coercion. That is directly from the National Security Advisor.
中共东部战区在今天上午片面地宣布对我实施军演。 在过程当中，国军运用联合勤监侦的手段，检派我们的任务机、任务舰以及岸置飞弹系统，去严密的监控、掌握，并且适切的应对。
Despite China's claims of live fire drills, Taiwan confirmed that no such drills were detected near its territory. The increased military activity follows heightened Chinese rhetoric against Taiwan President Lai Ching-te, whom Beijing accuses of separatism. Meanwhile, the Philippines military chief warned that the country would be inevitably involved in any conflict over Taiwan, highlighting the growing tension in the region. This is how China reacted to the statement.
其是中国的内政，是中国核心利益当中的核心。如何解决台湾问题，是中国人自己的事，不容他人知会。 我们奉劝菲律宾有关人士，不要在台湾问题上挑衅玩火，玩火者必自焚。我们也坚决反对有关人士毫无根据地发表颠倒黑白、抹黑炒作式的言论。
Joining us to discuss these latest developments from the Chinese and Taiwanese regions is Andrew K.P. Leung, an international and independent China strategist, joining us from Hong Kong. Andrew, thank you very much for being here. We have to look first at this military action and the drills that have taken place over the last couple of days. Is this China getting ready for a full-scale invasion of Taiwan?
Well, these drills are not, of course, the first and are unlikely to be the last. And it's been intensifying a stern warning against separatist sentiments, exemplified by the new leader elected in Taiwan, who has long known to be a pro-separatism kind of actor. Even before he ascended to the presidency, the leadership, Taiwan, he has already been well known as a separatist. And also, Beijing has made it quite clear that it would not tolerate any formal declaration of independence, because this is really the red line, not only for the Chinese Communist Party, but for the entire Chinese nation. Now, I think that the vast majority of the Chinese people do support unification, ideally on peaceful means. But in fact, Beijing has published serially white papers on the Taiwan question. The last coincided with Nancy Pelosi's provocative visit to Taiwan. They're all putting great store on the importance of peaceful unification. But what we're seeing now is, of course, is the creating a momentum forcing the Taiwanese authorities to negotiate for a peace deal, perhaps even more generous than Hong Kong and Macau. But firstly, the momentum must be driven by, first of all, military deterrence. Secondly, economic isolation. And more countries now abandon their recognition of Taiwan and move to the side of China because they're where that side of the bread is buttered. But also with the new Trump administration, Trump 2 administration, the Americans' attitude towards Taiwan has become more calibrated and more uncertain because President Trump recently was shown on television holding up a ballpoint pen and pointing to the tip of ballpoint pen as representing Taiwan, and then a large group at his back representing China. And of course, Taiwan is thousands of miles from the United States, and looking at the Trump 2 administration agenda, he wants to make America great again by taking Greenland, Canada, Panama Canal, and Mexico. They're all in the Western Hemisphere. But that does not mean that the United States is giving up its influence on the Asia Pacific, but that could be achieved by offshore balancing and by stroking Americans' semi-allies, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and trying to contain China there, and also using the predominance of the US dollar for tariffs and sanctions, and that way the United States can maintain its influence in the Asia Pacific and the rest of the world without getting really being involved. Because after all, Trump doesn't want a war. He doesn't want a war over Ukraine. He doesn't want a continuing conflict in the Middle East. So as to concentrate on a rivalry with China. But even on the rivalry with China, he's now seeking a kind of more a balanced, perhaps, relationship, because he has touted his wish to visit China and to meet President Xi himself. Now, so the Taiwan question must be looked at it that way, and the narrative is a bit false and twisted, that China will somehow take advantage of the example of Ukraine to engineer an invasion of Taiwan, taking Taiwan by force. I think that this totally...
Yes, Andrew, I apologise to interrupt. We are running short of time. You've mentioned the US reaction there and the influence over Taiwan as well. But I also want to look specifically at the Philippines, who have commented saying they will inevitably have to be involved if there is a conflict in Taiwan. Also looking potentially at purchasing fighter jets from the United States. What's the Chinese response to these comments? And do you think that this really is a big regional dispute that involves participation from nations across the region?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I think that we are not there yet. I don't think there is any direct efforts to start talking about unification, because the reality remains that most of the Taiwanese people do not want unification. Over 50% or 60% do not want unification, but likely the similar majority do not support declaration of independence. They just want to maintain the status quo. But on the other hand,
Andrew, sorry to interrupt again. I asked you a specific question about the Philippines and the reactions that we've heard today in relation to their comments saying that they would inevitably be involved in a conflict if there was one with Taiwan, and also potentially purchasing US fighter jets. What's your response to what the Philippines have been saying, and do you think this is a wider conflict?
Well, the Philippines is part of the offshore balancing of the United States, as I mentioned, using hawkers, Australia, Japan, South Korea, in the northern part of the China Sea, and the Philippines, of course, occupying very strategic position in the southern part of the China Sea. And then with the Marcos Jr. administration tilting towards the United States, and of course the Philippines would like to play along with it. But on the other hand, Philippines is not by any means a military threat to the Beijing, but nevertheless, that's part of the United States offshore balancing. But I don't think that the Philippines wants to start a war. It is also a demonstration of the United States' overall strategy to contain China.
Andrew KP Leung, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing that insight. We will, of course, be across all of the developments that